Hello viewers, welcome to World Space Week 2021 lecture series being hosted by SDSC Shar Sriharikota. Today's lecture is being presented by Srimati M.S. Shanti, working as a senior scientist in Satish Dhawan Space Center, Shar Sriharikota. She has obtained her BE in Electronics and Communication from Government College of Technology, Coimbatore, and post-graduation in Instrumentation Engineering from Coimbatore Institute of Technology. She has joined in ISRO Telemetry Tracking and Telecommand ISTRAC, Bangalore in 1994 as a spacecraft controller and involved in control operations of remote sensing satellites round the clock. At ISTRAC SDSC Shar Sriharikota, she was being responsible for design, development and operationalization of launch vehicle data handling software for launch vehicle tracking stations of ISRO ISTRAC and successfully deployed for launch vehicle data reception. She has realized launch vehicle telecommand station at Port Blair, which is in successful operation for past 6 years. Currently, Srimati M.S. Shanti is working as Deputy General Manager for Meteorological Instrumentation and Wind Profiler Radar at SDSC Shar Sriharikota and also being responsible for various weather predictions throughout the year and also for operations of Wind Profiler Radar for launch missions. Srimati M.S. Shanti is a lifetime member in Astronautical Society of India. She is an active member of many committees of the Centre and also President of ICC at SDSC Shar. Srimati M.S. Shanti is a recipient of award Nari Shakti Samman from Swarna Bharat Trust in 2018 and also she was honoured with the prestigious Nari Shakti Award from the Government of India in the year 2019.
Hello viewers, good evening to all. On the occasion of World Space Week 2021 with the theme Women in Space, I extend my warm wishes to all the women folk across the globe in the field of space who had put forth all their effort, ambitions, achievements and created a space in this domain. Today, my topic for the day is meteorology instrumentation and launch operations. On the global level, meteorology and instrumentation gained importance and attention in 90s when rocket launch failures were related mostly to weather. For example, in Space Shuttle Challenger, the solid rocket booster seal failed due to very low temperatures the vehicle experienced before liftoff and upper wind conditions during flight. Second example is the loss of Atlas Centaur vehicle due to lightning strike in the year 1987. The highlights of my presentation is given in the slide. First, I will be dealing with what is the importance of meteorological instrumentation. Second, what are the parameters which we will be measuring and where are these parameters from and the instrumentation importance and a typical example of these parameters which are being used for launch. First, weather factors like wind speed, lightning thunderstorms, etc. influence all phases of launch operations. They play a significant role in determining the activities at launch sites. In various phases they are used, like in mission planning phase, the weather factors have influence on vehicle design, flight trajectories, fuel consumption and time and day of launch. During ground operations, the weather factors have influence on vehicle assembly, vehicle movement to launch pad, critical activities like fuel filling, pyro arming, etc. and even ground safety. For launch phase, the influence is on liftoff, flight trajectory, flight safety and range safety. Weather hazards encountered during the launch can affect the safety of the entire mission like the launch pad, spacecraft, payload and even crew in case of manned mission. In specific for launch, the weather forecasting typically begin from launch campaign start onwards. The forecasting enhances efficiency, reliability and safety of space system. The significance of the parameters that are to be monitored closely depends mainly on the geographical location. This slide highlights that, for example, for a spaceport like Sriharikota Highland, which experiences tropical climate thunderstorms during hot and humid conditions, low pressure systems and cyclones, we concentrate mostly on the thunderstorm activity and lightning during summer seasons. Whereas in Kennedy Space Center, Florida, US, lightning activities are more, and so importance of lightning prediction is the first priority there. In general, these are the weather parameters which are listed in this slide are of importance. First and foremost parameter is the wind. This parameter plays a significant role in all phases of launch. Like as mentioned earlier in the previous slides, the wind loads estimates are specifically used during the vehicle design phase and flight trajectory determination as well as the time and day of launch. When the vehicle is in launch pad, this wind data is crucial to estimate the structural loading on the freestanding vehicles in launch pad as well as the umbilical tower, and also for umbilical tower clearance during liftoff. High resolution vertical profiles of wind speed and direction are needed to assess wind loads on launch vehicle even during the flight path on the day of launch. Next parameter is the electric field. The electric field determines the probability of overhead lightning in a launch site and in the surrounding range. Whenever during the ascent phase of the launch vehicle, the electric surges which are acting on the vehicle can act as a trigger which will lead to loss of vehicle control and can even bring destruction. This is basically because of the rate of ascent. When the rocket is on the upper path, it encounters very rapid changes in the ambient atmospheric electric field. Next parameter is the clouds. The presence of clouds obstruct the visibility in tracking of the vehicle, as well as there is a possibility of cloud induced lightning during the ascent phase of the launch vehicle. Precipitation and thunderstorm. This parameter is concerned. Shar being a tropical weather climate, we have done few launches during precipitation also. But however, when precipitation is associated with thunderstorms, it is not safe, and there were practically few occasions where the vehicle movement had been postponed during precipitation time. And also another factor it affects visual tracking performance as well as also for rain safety constraint. This is a parameter which has to be considered. Next parameter is the temperature and humidity. And temperature and humidity ranges in particularly Shar region are conducive for all phases of launch, and this is basically used for general weather forecasting. This parameter gains importance in regions where the temperatures go very low, like sub-zeros. Where are these parameters obtained from? This current slide lists the instrumentation systems which are in use in launch site. The first and foremost one is the age-old instrumented meteorological towers from which the surface boundary layer observations of wind speed, wind direction, temperature, humidity, pressure, long wave radiation and short wave radiation parameters are obtained. Next instrumentation system is the electric field network, which measures the electric field strength, thus providing us advanced warning of overhead lightning and also to an extent the approach route. And the third system which is in place here is the Robbins sonde or the GPS sonde station. These systems are basically used for upper air observations of parameters, namely atmospheric temperature, pressure, humidity and also wind velocities primarily. And another system is a Doppler wind profile radar. It's an all-weather system and provides excellent overhead temporal resolution measurements of winds, gust and desired parameters like reflectivity factor and raindrop size distribution. The next one is a Doppler weather radar, which is used and being used for detection and tracking of cyclones, accurate observation of precipitations in terms of intensity and specifically location. The next one is the surface observatories, where we have instruments mounted on ground like dry bulb and wet bulb thermometers for temperature, barograph for pressure recording and hygrograph for humidity measurements. Ceilometer is another ground based active instrument which is basically used for detecting the presence of clouds overhead and measures the height of their bases. Let us see each instrumentation system in detail. First one is the instrumented meteorological towers. They are self-supporting steel structures located near the launch site for measuring surface winds. The height of the towers are 125 meter, 100 meter and 20 meter respectively. Different types of sensors as given in the slide are mounted on the tower at different heights. The sensors are positioned in such a way that they measure the actual values. The tower design is also in such a way that the wind speeds they measure are actuals and it does not create any obstruction to the flow of wind. The sensors output are acquired by a data acquisition system, and there it is processed, where it is converted to engineering units, formatted for transmission to a distant location, and then it is even displayed locally. The data from this tower is monitored continuously prior to liftoff. The wind parameter is one of the launch commit criteria parameter, and the value should be typically less than 15 meter per second, and the tower is specifically designed to withstand heavy winds more than 200 km per hour. And also the towers and the instrumentation system are lightning protected. The system now functions on a 24/7 basis and provides continuous data to the user. The next system we will be seeing is electric field mill network. The electric field mill measures electric potential gradient in volts per meter. We have a network of around 12 field mills. Out of this, 7 are downlooking field mills and 5 are uplooking field mills. The principle of operation of all the field mills remains the same, whereas the downlooking field mills are much sensitive during rains. The measurements given by the downlooking field mills are more accurate compared to the uplooking field mills, as the rotor rotation is attenuated due to the rainfall on the rotating device. Let us see how this field mill works. It is basically an electromechanical device with the sensing electrodes. These electrodes are exposed to the electric field overhead, which is like a fan blades type rotor. Due to the on and off exposure of the electrodes, it generates a sinusoidal signal output which is amplified. The amplitude of the signal determines the strength of the signal received. It aids in monitoring the development, dissipation and passing of lightning overhead. All the field mills are connected in star topology, and the data from all the field mills in the network is accessed in a centralized location by users. The deduction range for each mill is up to 25 km max. The radius of increased field strength is represented in color codes with an update rate of 1 Hz. The graph which is there in the slide, it shows a network of 4 field mills graphical display. This particular graph is taken on a benign day where there are no electric fields, and you can see a horizontal line. And whenever there is a electric field occurring, as you are seeing from the graph, it displays the data of 4 field mills in a single screen. This particular graph was taken on a benign day where there are no electric field strength. So you can see that is an horizontal line. Whenever there is an event occurring, there will be a rise in the amplitude of the signal strength, and hence this will be reflected. You can see spikes during lightning time, just prior to set of lightning, and during lightning the peak rises, the amplitude rises, and so you can see a peak. The process data of all location is displayed at a centralized facility. Due to network topology, the variation in field strength between the mills gives a rough estimation on the approach direction of thunderstorm and lightning. For example, you are seeing 4 field mills. In that, suppose say in the first field mill location, the electric field strength has increased. There will be a variation in the data which we are seeing. You can see a spike or an increase in the electric field. As the field is moving, then that may reflect in the field mill 3, which is diagonally opposite to the first one. So in this way you can see the approximate direction of the field, that is electric field approach to the place. The next system we will be seeing is a raw wind sonde or GPS sonde system. They are basically cost effective solutions to measure atmospheric temperature, humidity, pressure and wind velocities with height typically up to altitudes of 40 km max. They are basically a balloon borne instrument with radio transmitting capabilities. The GPS receiver module, which is there in the balloon borne segment inside the sonde, determines the position and velocity of the sonde. The transmitter in the sonde transmits the above data to the sonde ground station. The successful operation of all GPS sonde system depends on uninterrupted communication between the radio sonde and ground receiver. The GPS sonde is basically tied to an helium or an hydrogen filled balloon that lifts a device up through the atmosphere. For normal measurements, the radar tracks a reflector tied to the balloon to get its position and velocity, that is a normal raw wind balloon. Whereas for a GPS sonde balloon, since the data is transmitted by the transmitter, no radar tracking is required. This is one major advantage of GPS sonde systems. The only limitation is that at least 4 GPS satellites should be visible to the sonde to get the wind profile with good accuracy. The system which is being used is basically an indigenous system developed by ISRO. The balloon-borne segment named as a Pisharati sonde, and we have a ground segment operating at SDSC Shar. The sonde has sensors for measuring atmospheric temperature, relative humidity, pressure, and the GPS receiver module for acquiring altitude data and time. All these data are processed and transmitted to ground segment. The ground segment at Shar consists of antenna, receiver and data processing system. The sonde operates in the frequency 400 to 406 MHz, and it is a low cost, compact and with a low transmit power of 50 milliwatt. The receiver at the ground station with a good sensitivity of minus 117 dBm, it receives a RF signal from the antenna and converts the RF signal to IF, demodulates it and digitizes further to obtain the products. Next we will be seeing about the wind profiler radar. The wind profiler radar is a state of the art system. It's an all weather system where the radar can function in all types of weathers like thunderstorms, lightning as well as cyclonic period. Here this works on Doppler principle. Like any other radar, the basic system components are an antenna array and then a transmitter, receiver modules, and then a processor for digitizing, a digital receiver for digitizing the data, and the controller for controlling the total radar. The radar basically works on backscattering principle, where the pulsed RF which is transmitted to the sky is backscattered, and this is collected by the antenna. Here the Doppler principle is used, where the target for backscattering are basically the turbulent eddies. And this radar can measure winds up to an height of 21 km, and a typical time which we can get a profile from this radar is 8 minutes with a new profiler. The basic advantage of this radar compared to the balloon ascents is that this is a near real time system where we can get the data within 5 minutes compared to the balloon ascent to get the data for the same height with 1 hour 30 minutes. And also it is an all weather radar, whereas during cyclone time there is a possibility that the balloon will be drifted away from the launch site, whereas the radar gives the measurements right over it and near the launch pad. So this is one major advantage. And then this radar is also used for other diurnal observations and various other meteorological uses also. The Doppler weather radar is basically used for detection and tracking of cyclones, and then it gives accurate observation of precipitation in terms of intensity and location, and then it is used for tracking and monitoring of monsoon and tropical low pressure systems. The difference between a conventional weather radar and Doppler weather radar is that the weather radar provides information about location and intensity of precipitation, whereas Doppler weather radar provides detailed information on storm internal wind flow and structure. Thus, the severity of the cyclone can thus be quantitatively estimated more accurately and is useful for precise advance warnings and operational weather forecasting. From the name, one can see that the Doppler weather radar works on the Doppler principle. They are coherent pulse radars, and the targets for a Doppler weather radar are hydrometeors which are distributed in nature and fill the radar beam. The dynamic parameters of the target are measured by sampling the process volume at the pulse repetitive frequency of the radar which is operating. The return echoes from the target contains useful information about the dynamical properties of the target. The received power is a measure of intensity of precipitation. The Doppler weather radar basically estimates the 3 base products, namely reflectivity, velocity and spectrum width as a function of range. Coming to the different subsystems of Doppler weather radar, it is as same as any other radar where it has an antenna, a radome for antenna for protecting the structure on this as the system is expected to operate during cyclones, and a servo for antenna movement, transmitter, receiver, master timing signal generator, signal processor for processing the data, and a weather radar controller. So the range which the Doppler weather radar can cover is up to 400 km, and the scan rate, that is the rate at which it can update the data, is 10 minutes at present. Next is the ground-based measurements and ceilometer. A ceilometer is basically a pulse diode lidar. It is an active remote sensing instrument for accurately detecting the presence of clouds overhead and measuring the height of their bases. This is particularly very useful when even physical visibility is limited, ranging from 8 kilometers and to 15 kilometers. It can give the height of the cloud bases. In the ground observation network, we have the conventional instruments like dry bulb and wet bulb thermometer, and what you see there is the Stevenson screen, which is used to protect these thermometers, and barograph for measuring, that is for recording the pressure in real time, and hygrograph for humidity measurements. These are being used for quite long, and these are used to measure the surface based parameters. And the right picture which you are seeing is a ceilometer, which I explained earlier also. This you see it transmits a laser pulses to the sky, and the received back signal is measured, that is processed to give the presence of clouds as well as the height of the clouds from the base of the equipment. In this slide, these are the typical parameters which will be considered for launch commit criteria, which decides whether the launch can proceed at T minus 30 minutes. First parameter is that the low pressure system from T minus 3 days onwards they will be observing, and no system should exist within 300 kilometers of shower. This parameter we are observing from the Doppler weather radar. When once this parameter criteria is met, then that the status will be as a go status, or else it will be a no go status. And the thunderstorms from T minus 30 minutes. No thunderstorm within 10 kilometer radius around the launch pad should be there on the day of launch, and the corridor, that is 10 kilometer wide corridor on either side of the launch azimuth up to a distance of 20 kilometers. So this parameter basically from the Doppler weather radar and GPS balloon essence as well as wind profiler system, this data is derived, and once the criteria is met, the status is set as go for this particular parameter. And then it is next is electric field values. Typically the value should be less than 1000 volts per meter within 5 kilometer radius, and less than 700 volts per meter in 10 kilometer range of flight path direction. This electric field values are derived from the electric field mill network, which we have seen earlier. So once this criteria is met, the status will be set as go. And then next is the takeoff limit winds up to 100 meter heights. This parameter is derived from the meteorological towers as well as from wind profiler data as well as from GPS sonde data. Here the typical value is given here, that is it should be 15.1 meter per second at 10 meter height, and it should be less than 21.9 meter per second at 100 meter height. When this criteria is met, the status is given as go. And then it is vertical visibility. The vertical visibility parameter is obtained from the ceilometer, and here up to 1 kilometer height it should be visible. And these parameters, and when all the parameter values are well within the limits, then they go ahead for the next sequence of events during the launch is given. And thus these instruments play a vital role in determining the go or no go status of the launch. To conclude, reliable weather measurements are the key to successful space missions. Thank you.